My first thought was that she'd finally agreed to the trip to Italy we'd been planning. My second thought was that something was very, very wrong. I'm Marcus Sullivan, 58 years old, and I thought I'd learned to read people after 30 years in commercial real estate. I was wrong. 3 months ago, my doctor called me back into her office after my annual physical. Dr. Patricia Chen had been my physician for 12 years, through my divorce, through rebuilding my life, through everything. When she asked me to sit down with that particular tone in her voice, I knew it wasn't good news. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something we found in your blood work," she said, pulling up charts on her computer screen. "Your cholesterol is elevated, but that's manageable. What concerns me more is your liver enzyme levels. They're significantly higher than they should be." I felt my stomach drop. "What does that mean?" "I want to run more tests, but I need you to be completely honest with me. How much are you drinking?" I thought about the scotch I'd been nursing most evenings since the divorce finalized 3 years ago. A couple glasses a night, maybe 3. She looked at me without judgment, just concern. "Marcus, your liver is showing signs of stress. Not cirrhosis yet, but we're heading in that direction if we don't make changes. I'm also concerned about your heart. Your father died of a heart attack at 62, correct?" "61, I corrected quietly. "You're at high risk. I want you to cut out alcohol completely for the next 6 months. Start exercising, and we'll monitor this closely. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. Your body isn't as resilient as it used to be. Any additional stress, whether it's lifestyle or emotional, could be dangerous." I left her office feeling older than I had in years. The truth was, I'd been lonely. My daughter Emily was in Boston with her own life, her own career in finance. My ex-wife had remarried. I'd thrown myself into work until I retired last year, and now I was rattling around a 4-bedroom house in Portland with nothing but time and memories. That's when Sophia walked into my life. I met her at a charity gala for the Children's Hospital. I'd been on the board for years, and these events were one of the few social obligations I still maintained. I was standing by the bar, nursing a club soda and lime, when she approached. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she said with a knowing smile. She was stunning. Early 30s, dark hair swept up elegantly, wearing a navy dress that was sophisticated without trying too hard. But it was her eyes that caught me. Intelligent, with a hint of sadness I recognized. That obvious? I managed. Only to someone who feels the same way. She extended her hand. "Sophia Reeves, interior designer. My client dragged me here and then abandoned me for a conversation about yacht clubs. We talked for 2 hours. She was educated, well-traveled, and refreshingly direct. She'd moved to Portland 6 months ago from San Francisco to start fresh after a bad breakup. She loved architecture, asked thoughtful questions about my career in real estate, and made me laugh more than I had in months. By the end of the evening, I'd asked for her number. She'd smiled and said, "I was hoping you would." The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Sophia was everything I'd thought I'd never find again. We went to gallery openings, hiked in the Columbia River Gorge, cooked elaborate dinners together. She was interested in my stories, supportive of my decision to cut out alcohol, and seemed genuinely happy spending quiet evenings at home. "I'm not looking for excitement," she told me one night as we sat on my deck watching the sunset. "I had enough drama with my ex. I just want something real with someone who knows who he is." I introduced her to my financial advisor when we started talking about the future. I'd sold my company well and had investments, properties, a comfortable retirement. Sophia seemed almost uncomfortable discussing money. "Marcus, I don't care about any of that," she said. "I have my own business. I care about you." That should have been my first warning sign. People who genuinely don't care about money don't need to say it out loud. But I was lonely. I was vulnerable, and I wanted to believe her. 7 months into our relationship, everything changed. We were having dinner at my place when Sophia suddenly went pale. She set down her fork and pressed her hand to her abdomen. "Are you all right?" I asked. "I'm fine, just some cramping. I've been having it on and off for a few weeks. You should see a doctor. I have an appointment next week. I'm sure it's nothing." But I could see the fear in her eyes, and it terrified me. My sister had died of cervical cancer when she was 38. The thought of losing someone else I cared about to this disease made my chest tighten. The next week, Sophia went to her appointment. I offered to go with her, but she insisted she'd be fine alone. When she came back to my place that evening, her eyes were red from crying. "What did they say?" I asked, my heart already sinking. She sat down heavily on the couch. They found something, a mass on my ovary. They need to do more tests, but the doctor said it's likely cancer. Stage 3, possibly stage 4. The room tilted. I sat down next to her and pulled her into my arms. We'll handle this. We'll get the best doctors, the best treatment, whatever it takes. Marcus, I don't have that kind of insurance. I'm self-employed. My policy has a high deductible and caps on cancer treatment. The doctor said we're looking at maybe $180,000 out of pocket for the treatment protocol they're recommending. Surgery, chemo, immunotherapy. I'll pay for it, I said immediately. Don't even think about the money. We'll beat this together. She pulled back and looked at me with tears streaming down her face. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm telling you, we're going to fight this. She buried her face in my shoulder and sobbed. I held her and made plans in my head. I'd liquidate some investments, maybe take out a line of credit against the house. Whatever it took. That night, after Sophia had finally fallen asleep in my guest room, I sat in my study staring at nothing. The thought of losing her after finally finding happiness again was unbearable. But something was nagging at me, a small voice I kept trying to ignore. My daughter Emily called the next morning. We talked every Sunday, but she was calling early. Dad, I'm worried about you, she said without preamble. I'm fine, honey. Actually, I need to talk to you about something. Is it about Sophia? I paused. How did you know? Dad, I've been wanting to say something for a while, but I didn't want to overstep. But now I'm really concerned. Have you Googled her? Have you verified anything she's told you about her life? Emily, that's not fair. People deserve privacy. I trust her. Dad, she told you she's an interior designer with her own business in Portland, right? Yes. I can't find any business registration. No website, no portfolio, nothing. And when I tried to look her up on LinkedIn, there's a Sophia Reeves who matches her description, but her profile says she's a marketing consultant in San Francisco and doesn't mention Portland at all. My hands went cold. You investigated her? Dad, she's dating my father, and it moved really fast. Yes, I did basic due diligence. And I'm worried. Please, just be careful. Verify things before you give her any money. She's sick, Emily. She has ovarian cancer. She didn't ask me for money, I offered. There was a long pause. Dad, please promise me you'll verify that diagnosis before you pay for anything. Please. I need to go, I said and ended the call. But Emily's words stayed with me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Sophia had gone back to her apartment, saying she needed some time alone to process everything. Around 2 a.m, I got up and went to my computer. I started searching. Sophia Reeves, interior designer, Portland. Sophia Reeves, San Francisco. The business license databases. The state contractor registrations. Nothing. The Sophia Reeves my daughter mentioned was definitely a different person, but there was no record of my Sophia's business at all. That wasn't impossible. She could be operating under a different business name, but it was odd she'd never mentioned it. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I went through the photos she'd texted me over the months. One from a restaurant showed a reflection in the window behind her. I zoomed in. There was a man's reflection, seated at her table, just out of the main frame of the photo. She'd told me she was having dinner alone that night. My heart was pounding now. I went back further through our text messages. Every time she'd mentioned a client meeting, it was vague. No names, no project details, just meeting with a client or site visit today. At 4 a.m, I made a decision. I called Michael Zhang, a private investigator I'd used occasionally for business dealings when I needed background checks on potential partners. Marcus, it's 4 a.m. I need your help. I need you to run a complete background check on someone. I'll pay whatever it costs, but I need it fast. Who are we looking at? Her name is Sophia Reeves, or at least, that's what she told me. There was a pause. Marcus, is this personal? Very. Can you do it? Give me 48 hours. The next 2 days were torture. Sophia came over for dinner, and I had to act normal while my mind was racing. She talked about her upcoming surgery consultation, about treatment options, about being scared. Either she was telling the truth and I was the worst partner in the world for doubting her, or she was a gifted actress. On the 3rd day, Michael called. We need to meet in person. My office, 6 p.m. I drove to his office in a daze. Michael had been in investigation for 20 years, ex-military, and I'd never seen him look uncomfortable. But when I walked into his office, he looked grim. "Sit down, Marcus." He pushed a folder across the desk. I opened it with shaking hands. Her real name is Sophia Reeves. That part is true. She's 32. But she's not an interior designer, and she didn't move here from San Francisco 6 months ago. She's been in Portland for 3 years. She has no business license, no tax records showing self-employment income. What she does have is a pattern. He pulled out another set of documents. This is Ryan Park, 35. He's her boyfriend of 6 years. They live together in an apartment in Beaverton. He has a record: fraud, identity theft, served 2 years in California. I felt like I'd been punched. She lives with someone? It gets worse. Over the past 5 years, we've identified 3 other men, all similar profile to you. Divorced or widowed, 55 to 68 years old, financially comfortable. All 3 relationships followed the same pattern. She meets them at charity events or upscale venues. Romance develops quickly. Then, between 6 and 9 months in, she reveals a medical crisis. Usually, cancer, once it was a rare heart condition. She shows them medical documents, gets emotional, and the men offer to help pay for treatment. How much did they pay? Between $80,000 and $200,000 each. Then once she has the money, she disappears, changes her number, moves on. The men are usually too embarrassed to report it, and by the time they realize it's fraud, she's long gone. I stared at the photos in the folder. Sophia and Ryan together, clearly a couple. Sophia with another older man at a restaurant. Sophia leaving what appeared to be a medical supply store with a large bag. "What's in that bag?" I asked, pointing. We followed up on that. The store sells props and supplies for film production, including fake medical documents, prescription bottles, even medical equipment. My vision went dark around the edges. The diagnosis is fake. We're 99% certain. I have a contact at the hospital she claimed to visit. No record of any patient by that name. No appointments. Nothing. I sat back in the chair, trying to process it all. 7 months of my life. The intimacy, the conversations, the plans we'd made. All of it was a performance. "There's one more thing," Michael said quietly. "Ryan's laptop history, which we were able to access through some contacts. He's been searching things like undetectable poisons, inducing heart attacks in elderly men, and inheriting without a will." The cold feeling in my stomach turned to ice. "What are you saying?" "Marcus, I think once she got the money from you, she wasn't planning to just disappear. You mentioned your heart condition, your father's history. You told her about your health concerns, right?" I had. I'd told her everything. About my liver, my heart, the warnings from Dr. Chen. "I think they were planning to kill you and make it look natural. A man your age, with your health issues, a heart attack wouldn't raise suspicions. And if you'd updated your will to include her, which I'm guessing she was working towards, I thought I might be sick." She suggested we talk to my lawyer about the future. She said she wanted to make sure we were protected if anything happened to either of us. Michael nodded grimly. "That's the pattern. Marcus, you need to go to the police. Tonight." I drove straight to the police station. Detective Sarah Morrison listened to everything, reviewed Michael's evidence, and made a decision. "We're going to need your help to catch them in the act," she said. "Are you willing to wear a wire?" 2 days later, I called Sophia. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "How are you feeling?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Scared," she said, and she sounded so genuine it made me angry. "The doctor called today. They want to schedule surgery as soon as possible." "Marcus, I'm terrified. I want you to come over tonight. I have something important to tell you." "What is it?" "I'd rather tell you in person. Can you come at 7? She arrived right on time, looking beautiful and vulnerable. I was wearing a wire under my shirt. Detective Morrison and her team were parked down the street. We sat in my living room, and I took her hand. Under my shirt, my heart was pounding so hard I worried the wire would pick it up. "I talked to my lawyer today," I said. "I've updated my will. You're now the primary beneficiary of my estate. Everything. The house, the investments, all of it." Her eyes widened. "Marcus, that's too much. I can't. I want to. You're my future, Sophia. Whatever time we have, whether it's 50 years or 5, I want you taken care of." She was quiet for a moment, and I could see the calculation behind her eyes. Then she smiled and kissed me. "You're too good to me." There's just one thing I wanted to ask you about, I continued, pulling out my phone. I've been going through our photos, remembering all our good times together, like this one, from that restaurant in March. I showed her the photo with the reflection in the window. Is that Ryan in the background? I asked quietly. Her face went still. Who? Ryan Park, your boyfriend of 6 years, the man you live with in Beaverton. She stood up quickly. I don't know what you're talking about. Who told you that? Is the cancer real, Sophia? Or should I say, is any of it real? Her expression changed completely. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold calculation. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just a lonely old man who can't believe a young woman would actually care about him. The police have been listening to this entire conversation, I said quietly, and they're outside right now. I watched the color drain from her face as the front door opened and Detective Morrison walked in with 2 uniformed officers. Sophia Reeves, you're under arrest for attempted fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. She bolted for the back door, but there were officers there too. As they read her rights and put her in handcuffs, she turned to look at me with pure hatred. You don't understand, she spat. Men like you, you're so desperate for someone to make you feel young again. You're easy targets. You deserve this. Maybe, I said quietly, but that doesn't make it legal. Ryan was arrested at their apartment the same night. They found folders full of fake medical documents, research on wealthy single men in the Portland area, and detailed notes about my daily routine, my health conditions, and the security system in my house. They also found my life insurance policy information, which I'd never given to Sophia. She'd somehow obtained it, probably from my home office during one of her many visits. The trial took 8 months. During that time, 2 of Sophia's previous victims came forward. One was a widower from Seattle who'd paid nearly $200,000 for her treatment before she disappeared. Another was a divorced man from Sacramento who'd been suspicious and hired his own investigator before giving her any money. The prosecutor was thorough. They proved that Sophia had no cancer, had never been to the hospital she claimed, and that every medical document was forged. They proved the conspiracy between her and Ryan, showed the searches on his computer, and demonstrated a clear pattern of fraud. Ryan took a plea deal and testified against Sophia in exchange for a reduced sentence. He got 15 years. Sophia was sentenced to 25 years without the possibility of parole for 8 years, due to the severity of the conspiracy to commit murder and her multiple prior victims. I sat in the courtroom when they read the verdict. She didn't look at me once. My daughter flew in from Boston that night. We sat on my deck, and I finally cried. I was so stupid, I said. I wanted to believe her so badly that I ignored every warning sign. You weren't stupid, Dad. You were lonely. That's not the same thing. And you figured it out before it was too late. Barely. If you hadn't called, if I hadn't hired Michael, I'd probably be dead by now. Emily squeezed my hand. But you did. You listened when it mattered. That takes courage too. The following year was difficult. I went through therapy to process the betrayal and the manipulation. I learned about the tactics used by con artists, how they identify vulnerable targets, how they build trust through mirroring and manufactured intimacy. I learned that loneliness is a kind of vulnerability that predators can smell. They look for people who are isolated, who are going through transitions, who are desperate for connection, and then they exploit that desperation masterfully. But I also learned something else. I learned that being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. Being trusting doesn't make you stupid. What happened to me wasn't my fault, even though I made mistakes in judgment. Sophia and Ryan made deliberate choices to harm people. That's on them, not on me. With the help of my therapist and the support of my daughter, I started rebuilding. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage and subsequent isolation. I joined a men's group for people who'd experienced similar frauds. I even started dating again, cautiously, with my eyes wide open. And I started a foundation. The Marcus Sullivan Foundation for Fraud Awareness and Prevention. We provide education about romance scams, especially targeting older adults. We help victims report crimes and find resources. We work with law enforcement to identify patterns and catch perpetrators. Last month, we helped prevent a similar scam in Eugene. A woman in her early 30s was using the exact same playbook Sophia had used on me. We identified her, alerted police, and she was arrested before she could take a single dollar from her target, a 63-year-old retired teacher. I spoke at the press conference afterward. A reporter asked me if I was angry. I was, I said. For a long time, I was furious. At Sophia, at myself, at the whole situation. Every person we help, every scam we prevent, that's how I take back control. That's how I make meaning from what happened to me. Do you think you'll ever fully trust someone again? Another reporter asked. I thought about that for a moment. I think trust and verification aren't opposites. They can coexist. I trust people now, but I also verify. I listen to my instincts. I pay attention to inconsistencies. I involve my family in my decisions. That's not cynicism. That's wisdom. I'm 60 years old now. My health has improved. I've stuck with Dr. Chen's recommendations, and my liver enzymes are back to normal. I exercise regularly, eat well, and I've built a life that feels full and purposeful. I still date occasionally, and I'm open to finding love again, but I'm also complete on my own. The desperation that made me vulnerable to Sophia is gone. I know now that being alone and being lonely aren't the same thing. One is a circumstance. The other is a mindset, and I've learned the most important lesson of all. My worth isn't determined by whether someone else chooses to love me. It's inherent. I'm valuable because I exist, because I contribute, because I care. Sophia couldn't take that from me, no matter how hard she tried. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what might have happened if Emily hadn't called, if I hadn't investigated, if I'd just trusted blindly. I'd probably be dead. Sophia and Ryan would have my money, my house, my legacy. They'd be looking for their next victim. Instead, Sophia is in prison. Ryan is in prison, and I'm sitting on my deck, watching the sunset over Portland, planning next month's foundation fundraiser and looking forward to Emily's visit next weekend. I survived not because I was smart or because I was lucky, though both of those played a role. I survived because when the truth revealed itself, I had the courage to see it. I had the strength to act on it, and I had people who loved me enough to tell me the hard truths I needed to hear. That's the real story. Not about the con artist who tried to take everything from me, but about the support system that saved my life, and about finding the strength to transform trauma into purpose. If you're reading this, if you're lonely, if you're vulnerable, if someone has entered your life who seems too good to be true, I want you to remember something. You deserve love. You deserve connection. You deserve happiness. But you also deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve safety. Trust, but verify. Listen to the people who love you. Pay attention to inconsistencies. And remember that being alone is better than being with someone who sees you as a mark rather than a person. I learned these lessons the hardest way possible, but I learned them. And now, I'm here to make sure others don't have to learn them the same way. That's my promise. That's my purpose. And that's how I took back my life from the woman who tried to steal it.